Warning. Some viewers may find the following content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
You have never seen anyone resurrected before your eyes, and yet you have seen me do it repeatedly. You have never seen anyone shot down as I was before your eyes with the blood spurting from the body and healed themselves, yet I, the socialist worker, did that. It's beautiful to know God is a socialist worker. You can identify with that. God is a socialist worker.
On November 18th, 1978, more than 900 people, including 276 children, were found dead in the remote commune of Jonestown, located approximately 130 miles outside of Georgetown, the capital of Guyana. When news of this broke out to the world, they were in complete shock. More than 900 people died in a mass murder-suicide under the order of Jim Jones, the leader of the People's Temple cult. As the years carried on, more information began to be uncovered about the cult. Who exactly was Jim Jones? Why did he command over 900 people to commit suicide? Well, in order to know the answer to your questions, we'll have to go back in time. James Warren Jones was born on May 13, 1931, in the small town of Pratt, Indiana. Growing up, he developed a profound love for religion. In school, he was often described as an outcast and very weird, who also had an unhealthy obsession with death. But not like his father, who was a known racist in town. He was also part of the Indiana branch in the Ku Klux Klan. This would later be shown when an argument broke out between the father and son, when one day Jim tried to invite one of his friends over to his house, but his father refused him because he was an African American. Eventually, in the year of 1948, due to his excessive drinking problem, Jim Jones' mother left him and took the young Jones to Richmond, Indiana, where a year later he would graduate Richmond High School. In the same year of graduating, Jim Jones would marry Marceline Baldwin, who worked as a nurse. Afterwards, they would both move to Bloomington, Indiana the same year, where Jones would begin attending Indiana University. His original goal was to become a doctor, but shortly afterwards decided to change his mind. 2 years later, the couple would move to Indianapolis, where he would begin attending Butler University. Somewhere in early 1972, Jones would come to tell his wife and her side of the family that he would become a Methodist minister. When attempting to be able to start in the church, he was surprised that a Methodist district superintendent was more than willing to help Jones in doing so. This came to be a surprise to Jones, since the superintendent knew that Jones was a communist, and communism was completely forbidden in the church. Prior to this, Jones had been attending speeches relating to communism, and soon began to support the idea and other radical political views, including socialism. Because of this, he and his family would be harassed by government officials for his affiliation with communism. This is where he would tell himself the only way to demonstrate Marxism was to enter the church. During the summer of 1952, Jones would be hired as a student pastor for the children at the Southside Methodist Church. It was during his time there that he would initiate a project to create a playground that would be allowed to children regardless of their race. While a student pastor, he would visit and often speak at other churches. In 1953, Jones would visit a latter-rain convention in Columbus, Ohio. While there, a woman prophesied Jones as a prophet with great ministry. Although initially shocked by this, Jones accepted the call to preach, then rose to the podium to give a speech to the crowd. Not long after, he began to believe that he had been offered a much greater chance to become a preacher, and so, Jones managed to convince his wife to leave the Methodist Church and to join the Pentecostals instead. Soon after, Jones would start to attend and preach at a tabernacle in Indianapolis. But in the year of 1955, the Latter Rain movement assigned a new pastor to the tabernacle who enforced their denominational ban on healing revivals, which is something that Jones took great interest in prior. This would ultimately lead to Jones leaving altogether, and in turn, he would establish the Wings of Healing, which would later be known as the People's Temple. Unfortunately for Jones, in the beginning, his new church only attracted around 20 members, all of them also being former members of the same tabernacle that Jones left. With not enough members to support Jones financially, he was forced to sell pet monkeys he had to raise funds for his new church. Believing that there was a need for publicity, Jones began to seek out ways that would popularize his ministry and to be able to gain new members. Not long later, Jones began to associate himself with the Independent Assemblies of God, a collection of international groups of churches that associated themselves with the Latter Rain movement. What gravitated Jones towards this was that the organization allowed divine healing practices, which, as somewhat mentioned earlier, was something that Jones was strongly interested in. In the summer of that same year, Jones would hold his first joint meetings alongside of William Branham, a well-known healing evangelist who was primarily known for his role as a Pentecostal leader in the global healing revival. In the year of 1956, Jones would be ordained as an IAOG minister by Joseph Matson Bowes, another leader of the IAOG and of the Latter Rain movement. The same year, Jones would rise to eminence within the group. He would then organize and host a healing convention during a 5-day period between June 11th and June 15th at a place called Cato's, a tabernacle in Indianapolis. Jones would continue to use convention meetings with other well-known Pentecostal speakers in order to gain more attention towards himself. Jones and Temple members went to various cities in Indiana and Ohio in order to recruit new members or hold fundraisers for their group. Simultaneously, the African American membership within the group had grown significantly, from 15% to almost 50%. In February of 1960, the Wings of Healing, which at this point was now called the People's Temple, established their own soup kitchen, which was made to help the poor, and their services now included assistance with rent, help with getting jobs, free canned food, clothes, and coal for houses during winter. Along with the help of his wife Marceline, Jones was able to increase the soup kitchen's production to around 2,800 free meals each month. At this point, the People's Temple was becoming very popular. Jones was also increasing his public activity in order to integrate a collection of businesses. The same year, which was a year after the Cuban Revolution, it was said that Jones traveled to Cuba in an attempt to persuade poor Cubans to move to his congregation in Indiana, but was unsuccessful. This was never verified to have actually taken place, however. It was also around this time that the members of the People's Temple began to see Jones as more of a Christ-like figure rather than just a preacher. In 1961, Jones convinced his aides that they needed to look for a new location to hold their congregation, due to Jones allegedly having visions of both Indianapolis and Chicago being completely destroyed in nuclear attacks. Between 1962 and 1963, Jones traveled to Brazil in an attempt to find a new place to hold his congregation, after reading in an article that Brazil was one of the safest places on earth. While there, the People's Temple began to lose money since, without Jones's presence, and with him not being there to use his charisma, attendance began to plummet, along with donations that the group was receiving. After realizing this, it's rumored that he sent someone from Brazil that became fond of his work to Indiana in order to restore lost funds, but even that wasn't successful, and in 1963, Jones returned home to find the People's Temple had become somewhat of a mess. Frustrated, Jones had to sell the People's Temple church building and move to a smaller one close by. In order to regain the money the group had lost, Jones would travel and host healing campaigns. Afterwards, in a presumed attempt to bring back the followers that he had lost while in Brazil. He preached that the world would come to an end in the next few years, caused by the use of nuclear weapons. In 1964, Jones began traveling on multiple occasions to California in an attempt to find a new place to locate his congregation. Finally, in the summer of 1965, Jones, along with his followers, made the move to their new location in Redwood Valley in Northern California. Despite this, Russell Winberg, who was Jones's assistant pastor at the time, strongly opposed Jones's effort to move the congregation to California, and told his followers that Jones was letting go of Christianity and was instead more focused on preaching his political beliefs and maintaining status as a Christ-like figure. After Jones left, Winberg took the role of leadership back in Indianapolis, and around 140 of Jones's followers made the move to California with him, while the rest of them stayed behind with Winberg. Using his degree from Butler University, Jones was able to get a job as a teacher at an adult school in the nearby town of Ukiah. While there, he used his new job to preach Marxism and religion in an effort to gain more followers from his classes, and to further maximize his efforts there, he even had some of his own followers enroll in his class to help with recruiting. His efforts were a success, as he managed to get 50 people to become members of the People's Temple, and in the following years, he convinced more than 70 members from the Indianapolis congregation to make the move from California, and by 1969, the total amount of members in the People's Temple had rose to around 300. Eventually, due to several factors, the congregation in Redwood Valley made the move to San Francisco and had it complete by 1972. By the mid-70s, with the use of traveling around San Francisco and to Los Angeles in hopes to increase their group membership, they had close to 3,000 members. By around this time, people began coming out and exposing Jones for fraud, abuse among his followers, and was suspected of being extremely controlling of his followers. In an attempt to avoid any legal consequences from authorities, Jones began renting land somewhere in the country of Guyana. Other than just to escape legal consequences, he began renting it as he wanted to give his followers a place to live without government interference, a place he called Paradise. However, it was also during this time that Jones began to use drugs heavily, which is highly believed to have caused him to believe that the government was trying to kill him and saw the US as something of a fascist country. Not long after beginning renting the land, which would later be known as Jonestown, Jones sent some of his followers to begin construction at the site to build a commune, and by the time it was complete in 1977, Jones encouraged his followers to make the move to Jonestown in Guyana, but had to give up several things, including contact with their family back in the US. By 1978, due to increasing suspicion from law enforcement, Jones fled the United States to live full-time in Jonestown. At first, things seemed to be going very well in this new paradise. This seemed to especially be the case when interviews were conducted at Jonestown. One notable interview was with Jonestown survivor Tim Carter. When interviewed on how life has been for him since moving there, his response was, "You can sit here and talk all day, and no words can describe the peace, the beauty, the sense of accomplishment and responsibility and camaraderie that's here. It's overwhelming. It really is." However, not all was as happy as it had seemed. There were reports circulating that punishments like beating, isolation, and hard labor were implemented to those that stepped out of line with Jones. Children too, unfortunately, were not spared of these types of punishments as well. They were abused, both physically and mentally, and were even forced to go for days with very little sleep. Jones was, by this point, becoming more paranoid of people coming after him and his people, which is highly suspected to be caused by his now heavy drug use. There were even confirmed reports that Jones even had guards armed with firearms around the perimeter of Jonestown in order to prevent anyone from leaving. One notable instance where someone attempted to escape was Tom Bogue. In 1977, Tom, along with a friend, attempted to flee the complex into the jungle, but were caught and brought back to face the full fury of Jones. Jones verbally lashed out at both of them, screaming,
"You filth! You vile filth! You're vile! You're evil! You're insidious!"
All the while, the rest of Jones's followers were going wild and were begging for blood. By this point, almost all of his followers had become brainwashed by Jones's views and saw him as someone to worship and follow. During the chaos, even Tom's own mother was attempting to call for her son and his friend to be executed.
Neither one of you deserve any pity. I think both of you should be shot now, and I think I should be allowed to do it.
Around this time, it should also be noted that Jones and his followers would begin practicing something called White Nights. White Nights were occasions where Jones had his followers pretend to drink a cup of poison, and this was done to prepare for what was to come soon. By 1978, the reports of what was happening in Jonestown had gotten so out of hand that California Congressman Leo Ryan went to make a visit to Jonestown on November 17, 1978. He would not come back alive. When he arrived, he began conducting his own interviews with the people there to see what they had to say. Prior to leaving, Jones had ordered his followers to act accordingly and to not seem suspicious. And surprisingly, it worked. After checking with the people in the commune, Leo made an announcement to the people there, saying,
"I can tell you right now that from the few conversations I've had with some of the folks here already this evening, that whatever the comments are, there are some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened in their whole life."
However, this moment would be short-lived. Leo and his camera crew began receiving notes from some followers, desperately asking for help to get out of Jonestown. Later on, Leo confronted Jones with the notes and asked him about them. Jones claimed that the people were lying and were trying to corrupt his community. Despite this, Leo and his camera crew began rounding up people that wished to leave. Those people included Tim Carter and Tom Bogue, as mentioned earlier. While leaving, someone came up behind Leo Ryan with a knife and said something along the lines of, "Alright, you you're going to die." Fortunately, others nearby grabbed the man before he could attack. This, however, seemed to fuel Jones's rage over the situation even more. They left nonetheless, but most of Jones's followers remained loyal and refused to leave. When they got to the tarmac nearby, Tim and several others got on the first plane and escaped. Tom, Leo, and several others waited for the next plane. But by the time it arrived, a trailer carrying a load full of armed men rolled by. They began opening fire on everyone at the tarmac. Although there is footage of this happening, I can't show it due to YouTube's policy, unfortunately. But I'll show a still image at the exact moment the gunmen arrived and opened fire. Here's the image. After the shooting, Leo Ryan, along with others, were killed. Tom and his younger sister were both shot as well, but they survived their injuries. During the shooting, they hid inside a plane and waited for the gunmen to leave. Once they believed it was safe, they got out, and as they were fleeing into the jungle, they heard the shouts of people, presumably the gunmen having spotted them. When the gunmen returned to Jonestown and informed Jones that Leo Ryan was shot dead, Jones turned the whole ordeal into a celebration by calling it a legacy. By now, Jones was worried that the shooting would cause the government to now come after him, and now he ordered the people to commit one final act for him: revolutionary suicide. He had his people prepare Kool-Aid laced with cyanide. He then ordered his people to drink it. Most of them followed through. Others who tried to resist were forcibly given it, and some were even forced down and had it injected into their body with the use of needles. Horrifyingly, this entire event was actually audio recorded, with the full recording being almost 45 minutes long. If you're curious to listen to the full recording, I'll provide a link down in the description. But I am warning you, it's very haunting, as in some parts, you can hear Jones saying very dark and twisted things, and you can also hear the anguished cries of children in the background. So view the clip at your own risk. Afterwards, word reached the United States government of what had happened at Jonestown and at the tarmac close by, and officials were sent to Guyana the next day. When they arrived at Jonestown, what they saw horrified them. 909 people in total were found dead in piles of bodies scattered across the complex, including Jim Jones and his wife. And unfortunately, that wasn't all. The same day that the massacre took place in the capital of Guyana, Georgetown, several of Jones's followers were stationed there when they received the orders through a radio for revolutionary suicide. Possibly the most notable survivor there was Jim Jones's adopted African-American son, Jim Jones Jr. He received the orders when he was playing in a basketball game. Met with initial shock, Jones Jr. refused to believe that the plan was to be followed through, but once he realized, he, along with others, persuaded others not to go through with the plan. Unfortunately, there were others that were extremely loyal to Jones, and at the end of the day, 9 people in Georgetown took their own life, bringing the total death toll to 918 people, including 276 children. Meanwhile, Tom Bowe and his sister, along with several other people who fled with them, found their way out of the jungle and were spotted when they approached a nearby village and were taken in. All the survivors, after being treated, were relocated. Not all of them were relocated back to the US, as some decided to stay and live in Guyana. And although it took years to identify each body, most were eventually given a proper burial, but unfortunately, some were never identified. After the massacre, Jonestown was left abandoned for good, and somewhere in the mid-80s, most of the buildings were destroyed in a fire. Today, the jungle has reclaimed back the land, and what stands there today is a haunting reminder of a tragedy that took place almost 50 years ago.